Say cheese! Looking back on life can come in many forms. Old home movies, scrapbooks, baby books, and that one memory feature on Facebook that drags out embarrassing things you said back in 2012. But one of the more underappreciated sources to take you down memory lane is the school yearbook. That annual tradition where you line up in the auditorium, sit in front of a tacky background, smile at a middle-aged man with a camera, and have your awkward teenage self immortalized on page. It was through this medium that a handful of people got an idea. An idea to take your standard yearbook and ask the question, what if they could talk to each other? It was this question that led to one of the quickest flash-in-the-pan successes for one of the most powerful media conglomerates on Earth. This is the tale of that flash-in-the-pan success. A tale that may not be as old as time, but a tale that hasn't been told in decades. Let's open the yearbook and examine the curious case of Mrs. Munger's class. On September 10th, 1990, Disney launched one of the most recognizable television blocks in the collective memories of 80s and 90s kids, the Disney Afternoon, a 2-hour block consisting of 4 of Disney's TV animation offerings: DuckTales, Adventures of the Gummy Bears, TaleSpin, and Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers, with other shows rotating in and out over time. However, by the mid-90s, the Disney Afternoon was no spring chicken. Most of the original shows that made it a household name were either removed for the block, or had since ended production and were simply being reran. While this era of the Disney Afternoon had some hits, it was clear the block was nearing the end of its life. In 1996, Disney would purchase ABC Capital Cities to the tune of $19 billion. At the start of Disney's newest acquisition, a handful of Disney Afternoon's content found their way to ABC's new Saturday morning block, including The Mighty Ducks and Gargoyles. However, since airing rights to other Disney Afternoon shows were still in the hands of CBS at the time, Disney CEO Michael Eisner felt this block needed an overhaul. It needed original shows found nowhere else. It needed to stand out from the competition. But most importantly, it needed a new look. Luckily for Eisner, he was about to get some help from the competition. The first was Geraldine Laybourne. Laybourne was a program manager for Nickelodeon starting in 1980 before becoming president of the network in 1984. Following the purchase of ABC, Laybourne announced that she was jumping ship to Disney to serve as president of Disney's television department, which would include her overseeing the likes of the Disney Channel, A&E, Lifetime, and of course, ABC. The other was Peter Hastings. Hastings was a writer and producer for both Animaniacs and Pinky and the Brain. In February of 1997, Hastings left Warner Brothers following a growing amount of frustration over executives at Warner demanding changes to the latter. Laybourne would be the one to task Hastings with the duty of revamping ABC's Saturday morning block. After a bit of brainstorming, Hastings pitched the idea of each day of the week being represented by a different building. However, the building representing Saturday is a unique one. A hidden oasis where kids could experience 5 hours of summer once a week. The look of the building will be done with a combination of computer-generated graphics and virtual set technology, something that Hastings admittedly wasn't fully knowledgeable about. But with the help of some tech made by ACOM and LSET, production company Rutherford Bench Productions, and visual effects studio Pacific Ocean Post, Hastings, Laybourne, and the crew they assembled had their new block. One Saturday morning.
We
After a scheduling change following news coverage of the death of Princess Diana, One Saturday Morning made its debut. I'd like to point out they never actually show what the building for Sunday looks like, so I'm just going to assume it's a megachurch. One Saturday Morning's debut lineup consisted of 8 shows. 101 Dalmatians the series, Pepper Ann, Recess, Jungle Cubs, Doug, reruns of The New Adventures of Winnie the Pooh, Science Court, and The Bugs Bunny and Tweety Show. I'm not kidding. In between shows and commercial breaks, One Saturday Morning would include interstitial segments, including Manny the Uncanny, played by Freakazoid voice actor Paul Rugg, Great Minds Think for Themselves, which saw Robin Williams reprising the role of Genie one final time.
Put down the joystick, Sparky, and pick up a book. Great minds think for themselves. Visit your local library and the Library of Congress website, www.loc.gov.
Tube Dwellers, a series of shorts about people working inside your TV, and reruns of Schoolhouse Rock segments. However, the breakout segment that dominated most of the advertising for the block was, of course, Mrs. Munger's Class.
I want to arrange flowers for funerals.
The garbage carpet?
The twins want to sell stereos!
We're not twins!
We'll just have to be TV stars. Each week on Disney's One Saturday Morning.
Okay, class. Class? Word problem.
Yay.
Mrs. Munger's Class was a series of 90-second shorts focusing on a single classroom, which is represented in the style of a page of a school yearbook. Each episode sees the titular class exchange dialogue, insults, and jokes relating around whatever the class was doing in that particular episode. A good portion of these scenarios were typical school classroom fare, like word problems.
Feng Shi pulls a rickshaw filled with a dozen apples. Along comes Satoshi with a bucket of oranges, 10 in all, minus the one he gave to Consuela. When they meet, how many do they have altogether? Theodore?
Do
Do you have the answer?
No.
Spelling bees.
Let's begin the spelling bee. Theodore, we'll start with you. Please spell the word gather. Gather.
Okay, G, A, V, element, okay, F,
Okay, fine.
Fire drills.
Okay, let's begin. When I blow my whistle, do not panic. Single file, out the door, let's give it a try. Single file, single file. Now!
Science projects.
Mrs. Munger, I have prepared the volcano.
Lance is Pele, goddess of volcano.
I am a angry
Oral reports.
Teaching, the most honored profession since the
Gay Ord Bay.
Maybe I should start with my visual aids portion of my report.
Dawn, please present your oral report minus the visuals.
And holidays like President's Day.
Now, who are you, George?
Martin Van Buren's.
How did you twins both pick Martin Van Buren?
Eerie coincidence. We're not twins.
Okay.
Halloween.
Candy corn!
Mrs. Munger, Phoebe said candy corn!
Well, candy corn is for Halloween, and it's shaped like a stack of harvest wheat.
Just like Grace.
Cut it out!
I am Manny the Uncanny.
And Christmas.
Amanda, why don't you begin our Christmas carols?
Deck the halls with boughs of holly.
Mrs. Munger, Phoebe said...
I know what she said, Sissy. Happy holidays, everyone.
On special occasions, the class would depart the yearbook and go on field trips to typical field trip destinations, like a zoo.
That monkey threw something at Grace.
It was the twins.
We're not twins.
Art gallery.
Excuse me, don't draw in the fuse box.
Oh, what a barge of lard. Children, let's go check out the exhibit in
Cafeteria!
Oh, for the love of Rauschenberg.
Or museum.
Who can tell me what that animal is?
Dead.
No, well, yes, but no. Artie, do you know what animal it is?
That is turkey.
You're the turkey. Olay!
Simmer, Gordon, quit your clowning.
The class consists of Dawn, the teacher's pet, Artie, a kid who tends to speak non sequiturs at complete random, Karen, a goth girl obsessed with death, Gordon, the class clown, Lance, a kid who only speaks in pig Latin, Sissy, the class tattletale, Yvonne, the feminist, Grace, a girl with a large appetite that frequently gets picked on, Theodore, a kid with a notable stutter, Rock, a nerdy kid who speaks like Yoda, Amanda, a girl who sings everything she says, Phoebe, a female version of Artie but louder, George and George, identical twins who may not actually be twins, and Mahout, well, I don't want to say he's a special kid, but he only ever says one thing.
Mahout, your new seat is in the first row.
What?
It's in the first row.
What?
Your new seat.
What?
Oh, liver and onions, just sit down, Mahout.
What?
Okay, he usually only ever says one thing.
What?
Wondrous innovations would never have come to be without America's immigrants.
What?
Ever challenges America will face in the future, no matter what.
It will face them as a country that draws its strength from its unique and wonderful diversity. We thank you.
What? Mahout! Did you just... say that again?
What?
Other episodes will occasionally bring in a guest, who usually get their own spot on the yearbook page. These include Coach Susan, the school's field hockey coach,
Ime ouchke, ame ia east play uge ote ide athrum bay.
What? Mahout! Drop and give me 20. Push-ups.
Sven, a beautician that, well, they don't actually say it outright, but I think he's also a male stripper.
Okay, Sven!
Hi there.
Oh, no. I don't think your dancing talents are needed here, Sven.
Sweetheart, you just relax.
Farquhar, a foreign exchange student from Sri Lanka.
Well, Farquhar, what do you think of these American states?
Oh, it is very busy and exciting. There is a video store on my corner. Cap'n Tapins. Smile.
And, for some reason, a computer.
Behold! Video conferencing!
Mrs. Munger, what is going on?
I'm sorry, Mrs. Yamaguchi, but the...
Yamaguchi's class eats hair.
Look, it's Mrs. Munger's misfits.
Simmer class, people!
Mahout, say what?
What?
Yeah, they gave a computer its own spot in the school yearbook page. For every regular episode, you get one that's a bit more bizarre. These include a field trip to the airport gone wrong when Lance and Rock commandeer an airplane.
What's that sound? Where are Rock and Lance?
Fly, will we, back to our home planet!
Class, please take your seats and fasten your seatbelts. Oh, it's a good thing your parents signed those permission slips.
Lance and Rock revealing themselves to be aliens and vaporizing the rest of the class so alien doppelgangers can take their place.
Issy say, Fonye, a hoot may.
Oh, wait.
Now join our real friends, we can.
Rock, were you sleeping in class again? What's a teacher to do?
Sorry, Mom.
Ow!
Lance and Rock nearly blowing up the school with the class computer.
Airway, Akre, Ozgay, IA, gay.
Self-destruct sequence initiated.
Hey, you ever notice how Lance and Rock are usually the ones behind these? Theodore doing, well, this on President's Day.
Yes, Theodore? Who are you? Yes?
Jimmy Carter?
Stop that, Theodore!
And finally, the show just takes one giant tab of acid during a lesson on astronomy.
Well, class, today I want to teach you about astronomy, which is the study of the beautiful things we see in the sky every night after the sun has set.
The twins saw a UFO once!
We did not.
we're not twins!
I think the twins are a couple of UFOs. Unidentified freaky oddballs. Olay! Shampoo!
Phoebe said shampoo!
Simmer, class, simmer.
From the very start, Mrs. Munger's Class was not only a hit with audiences, but critics as well. Annie, age 7, said, "I always wait for the kids in the yearbook to talk." Kenneth M. Chenko writes, "The more episodes of Mrs. Munger's Class you see, the more you appreciate it, and the more you'll laugh out loud. Like any good series, the characters grow on you, their distinct personalities enriching the viewing experience." What made Mrs. Munger's Class work was how relatable the class was. Despite their one-note personalities, they all stem from the kind of people you would see in a typical classroom setting. Every class will have their teacher's pet, class clown, weird kid, Asian nerd, girl who eats their feelings, desperate wannabes, band geeks, and the worst.
Beware of the plastic.
Maybe you know a Don, or a Theodore, or even a Mahout. The class is basically one giant tag yourself, I'm this person post you would see on Discord or Twitter. On September 5th, 1998, Mrs. Munger's Class got a second season. Along with a slightly modified opening title, Gordon has a new picture, some students got haircuts, and a lot of the animation has improved, especially when the class goes on field trips. It was around this time that the crew were given the go-ahead to expand the series from just a simple interstitial. In addition to a segment where the class would interact with John Elway and Drew Bledsoe on Monday Night Football, Disney would greenlight a proper pilot, which was to air on primetime. However, both of these plans came crashing down after Disney got the one thing they would never expect from this kind of show: a lawsuit. At the tail end of 1998, the day before Christmas Eve, Disney was handed a class action lawsuit from 6 people. 6 people who claimed their pictures were used without permission. As it turns out, each of the photos were taken from an actual school yearbook. Mrs. Munger was actually one Kathleen Forsman, a middle school teacher from Woodbridge Middle School in Virginia, while the students were from her class in 1975. Forsman and 5 of her former students, Edward Jackson, Theodore Falchi, Michael Link, Susie Sparks, and Michael Blevins, accused the series of defamation. The suit, filed by attorneys Neville Johnson and Brian Rishwain, claimed, "Little did they know when they sat for their school portraits over 20 years ago that they were also sitting for portraits in a national television series in which they would be named, pictured, and portrayed as fools. It justifies our position that this is really outrageous that they would go forward using these individuals like they did without their authorization. We discussed the chutzpah of ABC and Disney to say, let's appropriate these photos and do with them as we please." According to the suit, Forsman was tricked into signing away her likeness for $1,000. Link's character was given stereotypical Asian attributes and insults which were hurled his way, like karate chops and other specific taunts. Jackson claimed to have been portrayed like Buckwheat from The Little Rascals, and Blevins was not only portrayed as developmentally challenged, but was also changed to a girl. Of the group, Jackson was the most vocal, saying, "I was just outraged that someone could take my picture and not even have the decency to contact me or not try to get my consent. It just makes me want to punch the wall, knowing somebody could get away with this. When I look at this, I start thinking of some of those old minstrel shows. That's insulting to me." Jackson also related how he first found out about Mrs. Munger's Class, as his 10-year-old niece had watched one Saturday morning and noted the similarities. But the most interesting part of this suit posits a question that was very likely on everyone's minds. How did Disney get their hands on that particular yearbook, and why was that particular class chosen for Mrs. Munger's Class? The answer is simple, really. Whoever helped create Mrs. Munger's Class was in this very class. The suit argues that one of the students in Forsman's class created the show as a means of, quote, for the purpose of humiliating and ridiculing former schoolmates, unquote. Basically, the students filing this suit thinks whoever helped create the show was out for revenge or had a personal vendetta against his former classmates. So, who was this person that did the deed? Who are these students pointing their fingers at? A man who goes by Eric Mahadi. Note the last name. In this entire class, who do you think sounds the closest to Mahadi?
What?
Mahadi.
What?
Eric Mahadi.
What?
The man who had the yearbook.
What?
Yes, Mahadi was none other than Mahout, the kid who rarely spoke and usually only said one thing. Mahadi had previously worked with Hastings back at Warner Brothers, serving as a model designer for Animaniacs, background layout artist for Tasmania, sub-main title artist for Batman the Animated Series, and did title cards for the Sylvester and Tweety Mysteries. Following the jump to Disney alongside Hastings, Mahadi was ultimately the one to supply one of his yearbooks for Mrs. Munger's class. Said Mahadi, "We just needed some vintage pictures of kids of that age group." Outside of supplying the yearbook needed, Mahadi had little else to do with the series. He didn't write any dialogue or develop personalities for the class. Mahadi's actual time with Mrs. Munger's class was very short-lived, as he found himself jumping to Nickelodeon to do artwork for the Angry Beavers. Another person who threw their hat into the ring, albeit years later, was series director Tim Maloney. In the comment section of a YouTube re-upload, Maloney had this to say. First off, the photos used in this show were not unaltered. Let's just get that out of the way right now. They were all changed and distorted. The issue was over whether or not they were altered enough. And yes, when I discovered the sources, I agree they were not altered enough. It was a sloppy job, and I should have done better. The Virginia elementary school kids whose photos were used did sue, but the case never went to trial. I still maintain we did nothing illegal, but it would have been too expensive to prove that. The complaints from the Virginia kids were, to say the least, short of hysterical. I understand they were miffed, but they really poured on the supposed pain and suffering. I don't think anyone ever actually believed those claims. Disney realized a high-profile lawsuit around a kids show was definitely not worth the bad press, so they bought them off short and sweet. As it is, I also still think the Virginia school kids killed the golden goose when they sued. If only they had called our producers and negotiated, they would have got a fee. Trust me on this. One Saturday morning was making enough money, and no one wanted to see the show go. There's a lot to take away from this, but I do want to address a few things Maloney claims. Maloney is correct in that Disney ultimately settled out of court. Disney spokesman Ken Green stated, "Because it apparently bothers some people, and because from a creative standpoint it isn't that important to the entire Saturday show, we felt the best course would be to simply delete it from the Saturday lineup." As mentioned before, Disney saw a lot in Mrs. Munger's class, and were ready to go all in on it. But when the chips were down and there were no other options, they called it a loss and gave in. But it says a lot that Disney was seemingly willing to give royalties to the former students just to keep the show going. But what really stands out to me is his stance on that lawsuit itself. The complaints from the former students were highly suspicious and didn't add up when you really looked deep into it. Edward Jackson's claim about being made into a Buckwheat-like character seems to stem from a misunderstanding. Jackson was obviously Gordon, but he seems to have misheard Gordon's catchphrase of "Olay" to that of Buckwheat's "Otay."
I was in the party scene in the Nutcracker.
Yeah, the Nutcracker, 'cause she nuts and crackers. Olay!
An easy mistake for sure. But comparing it to a minstrel show? Like, dude, there was a Little Rascals movie just a few years prior. And even prior back, do you know how progressive it was for the original Our Gang shorts to show white kids and black kids playing together back in the 1920s? Michael Link's claim about his character's Asian-related taunts and karate chops is nonsensical. The only thing close to that is an episode where Lance chops his desk.
Mrs. Munger, Lance chopped his desk in order to destroy school property.
Grace likes Lance.
Cut it out!
At no point in the entire series does someone taunt Lance for being Asian, assuming Link is indeed Lance. Lastly, the claim from Blevins about being turned into a girl who was slow just seems debatable. The closest female student with that description is Phoebe, but between her outfit and hair, they would have had to have made a lot of changes to the original picture to make it look more like a girl. And if Maloney is any indication, they didn't change the pictures enough. I don't want to come across as a prude who's dismissing these claims, but it seems like at least some of these students are exaggerating things to come off as more sympathetic to the public. Mahadi clearly had no ill will towards his classmates, and Maloney's comments show that there was no intent of focused harassment towards them in the show itself. But regardless, Disney's attempt to keep the show alive proved fruitless, so they pulled Mrs. Munger's class from one Saturday morning circulation. On this cancellation, Mahadi commented, "I thought it was hilarious. I thought it was really great." So with Munger's retirement, what would happen next? What would fill in the void left behind? The answer, a show just like Munger, but just a little bit different.
Move it along! Move it along! Keep it moving, people!
Hey, what's for lunch today, Murph?
We've got some meatloaf, green beans, mashed potatoes, and tapioca stew.
Centerville!
Rather than call it quits, Maloney and the Munger team decided to take the same premise of using school yearbook photos and make something distinctively different enough from Mrs. Munger's class, and with all of the precautions in place as is to prevent another lawsuit. Welcome to Centerville.
I was gonna ask why you don't really talk to me. I mean, being that we're on the same bus route and all.
I'm basically not a morning person.
Debuting on September 4th, 1999, Centerville saw a new group of kids in a similar school setting going about their days. Unlike Munger, however, these kids were not confined to the page of a yearbook. The entire show used proper backgrounds, not unlike those used for field trip locations of Munger. This included places like the school cafeteria, hallway lockers, and the school bus. Centerville also showed the lives of these kids outside of school, including a local fast food joint called Taco Freeze, and a residential area where the kids played in a garage band, both of which featured a much older kid named Brad, voiced by Rob Paulsen.
Alright, good to see you could all make it today. This band is gonna rock! Welcome to Taco Freeze, yo. Would you like to try our promotional meal?
What's the toy?
It's a pencil.
Another new addition to Centerville is the inclusion of a drum beat. This drum beat is not just background noise, as each character speaks in tune to said drum beat.
Funky Bus!
8 tracks.
Funky Bus!
Say, Funky Bus!
He says Funky Bus!
Move it along, folks! The barn doors are closing, and there's a storm a-coming.
The school smells like mildew. I'm allergic to mildew.
Brad, is something wrong?
No, I'm cool. I just don't feel like, playing today. Alright?
Each location around the school and Centerville itself have their own unique drum beat, leading to characters speaking with different inflections depending on where they are. Unfortunately, this style of dialogue does little to make it any interesting. Characters frequently repeat specific phrases multiple times in order to keep in tune to the beat, leading to some very awkward sounding deliveries with very obvious repeated lines.
Did you know that golf shoes have points on the bottom? Points on the bottom?
I think I'm getting a rash.
He's like, he goes, and I'm all, yeah, where's my pencil case? Where's my pencil case? Where's my pencil case? I've got a test.
Your dad is a hamburger?
Hamburger.
Your dad is a hamburger?
Hamburger.
Hamburger?
Hamburger.
Is that a joke?
Yes.
Ham.
Yes.
Burger.
Hamburger.
Cool. I don't get it.
Maybe you need some vitamin B. Vitamin B. Vitamin B.
Why don't you vitamin B quiet?
Seriously, what kid normally speaks like this? In the end, Centerville ended its run just 3 months later, with the final episode airing on December 18th, 1999, with just 19 segments under its belt. In late 2000, One Saturday Morning would see a small retool, with the interstitials and host segments inside the One Saturday Morning building being cut entirely. One Saturday Morning aired its final broadcast on September 7th, 2002, when the block would be renamed to ABC Kids. And this is typically where I would end things and head into my final summation, but we're not exactly finished just yet. For you see, there's still a few pieces of this puzzle missing from the big picture. Luckily for me, those pictures are pretty easy to find, if you know where to look. As mentioned before in passing, Mrs. Munger's class in Centerville would eventually find their way onto YouTube, under the appropriately named Mrs. Munger. Created on December 23, 2007, exactly 9 years after the lawsuit was filed, this new channel would eventually upload nearly the entirety of both series. As of this writing, the channel is still up and each video is still viewable. It was through this channel that people were made aware of something that no one thought was considered possible. A Mrs. Munger's Class DVD. Yes, on the personal website for Maloney lies a store page where you could buy this DVD. For the purpose of this video, I bought one. Now, it should be pretty obvious that this is not an officially licensed DVD. Dubbed the 2006 Phantom Edition, this DVD includes both seasons of Munger, the entirety of Centerville, and, what spurred my curiosity the most, the unreleased pilot. As I talked about earlier, Disney gave Maloney, Hastings, and the rest of the Munger crew the green light to make a pilot for a potential Mrs. Munger primetime series. There are other things on here I want to cover as well, but because I'll never get this opportunity again, let's go over the official unreleased pilot.
Bob, now here's today's pop quiz brought to you by the Taco Freeze. Manager Tickle Nugent says, "Hello, how are you? I am fine, thank you." Here we go. I bet no one knows this one. What is the one single animal that is monogamous even after its mate's death?
It's the swan.
Time's up, folks. Nice try. It's the swan.
After a short scene of Mrs. Munger driving her way to school and an opening I cannot play audio from because of licensing issues, we begin like a typical Mrs. Munger short, with Mrs. Munger teaching the class about Romeo and Juliet.
Simmer, class, simmer. Today we'll begin our discussion of Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet. Now, who knows what happens to them?
They die.
Well, yes, but why?
Eventually, the typical antics get interrupted by this man, Mr. Nort.
Hello, class. Please, sit.
We are sitting!
Well done.
What brings you here?
Oh, well, I must be in the wrong classroom.
Well, actually, Mr. Nort.
He sounds familiar. It's on the tip of my tongue, but it could be someone from Brooklyn. Mr. Nort here is a fellow teacher from another school.
Yes, well, Central is closed today. I'll wait outside.
The lights are on, but nobody's home.
Thank you, Neighborhood Watch.
Get used to him because he's going to be integral to the main plot. After taking his leave, the class gets into a conversation about R-rated movies, specifically one that the Georges claim to have seen.
Mrs. Munger, the twins said they went to an R movie.
We're not twins!
If you saw it, then what's it about?
If you're so smart, you tell me.
I didn't say I saw it.
What's it about?
Yeah, tell us!
Simmer, simmer, simmer. Hey!
Okay, I'm gonna pause here for a bit to remind you all that since this was meant to be a primetime series, this pilot gets away with a few things that definitely weren't possible on One Saturday Morning, with this talk of an R-rated movie being one of them. Meanwhile, Mr. Nort is outside swearing.
Damn it, woman, I just gotta ask. Will you go to dinner with me at the Mandarin Choo-Choo?
The Chinese place in the old train car?
As it turns out, not only are Munger and Nort neighbors, they're also kinda sorta setting up a date. Date. While this is happening, Dawn, Karen, Yvonne, and Grace gossip at their lockers about the possibility of Munger and Nort being an item.
Are you saying Mrs. Munger and Mr. Nort? No way! Nuh-uh!
Wait a minute, this looks familiar. Then Grace promptly gets trapped in her locker.
Yaha! He's closing in. Like a Venus fly. Trap.
Hey! You guys! I'm stuck in my locker, you guys!
Later at lunch, Gordon remains in disbelief that the twins went and saw an R-rated movie. In an attempt to catch the two off guard, Gordon tells them to talk about the movie with Brad.
Hey, Brad, how come you're 17 and you're still in junior high?
Hey, I'm just trying to get it right, all right? I mean, you don't get to be assistant manager at a Taco Freeze by sitting around on your dirt bike.
Actually, I think that's exactly how you do it.
Hey, you want to ride home or not?
As you'll see throughout this entire pilot, this thing will prove to be the missing link between the Mrs. Munger's class shorts and Centerville. Most if not all of the backgrounds in Centerville came from this pilot: the lockers, the school hallways, the cafeteria, and, as we'll see later, Taco Freeze itself. Brad is the only character in this pilot to survive the jump to Centerville. After getting some titillating details about the R-rated movie from Brad, we cut back to Mrs. Munger with the school vice principal, who is... What the fuck? What is up with this guy? He's got 4 eyes, 2 sets of glasses, and what is even going on behind him? Anyways, Mr. Swain here noticed that Mr. Nort was on school property, which sets him off as the school he teaches at is their arch rival. I think you're probably seeing where this pilot is going here. Mr. Swain orders Mrs. Munger to stop seeing Mr. Nort dangling a new projector in front of her as a bribe. After a short antic-filled scene at Taco Freeze, we cut to George and George, who... Okay, I guess that solves it. They're not actually twins. They're just next-door neighbors, who look exactly the same, living in identical houses. The Georges actually haven't seen the R-rated movie after all, and decide to sneak out that night to see it once and for all.
Meanwhile...
I'll be there in a minute. I'm just fixing my hair.
After some small talk about Mrs. Munger's late husband, the two set off on their late-night date. Unfortunately, the restaurant they were planning on going to was closed for Chinese New Year, so a change of plans is in order. Unbeknownst to them, however, Mr. Swain is following them with the intent of catching them in the act. The act of, hanging out. Let's check in on Grace, shall we?
Come on! Guys! Thank God you saved me! I'm saved! Thank you!
You're welcome, little missy. Now you can help me build my spaceship to Toledo.
Over at the movie theater, the Georges successfully make it into the movie. However, they're not the only ones here.
I'm gonna take a quick shower.
Ooh. What nice tile she has in her bathroom.
George! Is that Mrs. Munger over there? Where? Oh my... It is! Ew! Teacher in public! Who is she with? I don't know. Mr. Nort! Ew! Teacher in public!
Would you twins keep it down?
We're not twins!
I don't know what's worse, sneaking into an R-rated movie or catching your teacher watching an R-rated movie while you're sneaking into it. The Georges notice the two of them and are rightfully grossed out and try to flee. Mrs. Munger, feeling something's amiss, forces Mr. Nort out as well. While the Georges successfully trick their teacher with their disguises, the same can't be said for...
Another teacher in public! Don't you people have homes?
I want to see you twins in my office at 8 a.m. sharp.
We're not! Oh, can it?
The next day, both Georges and Grace are noticeably missing from class. Hey Grace, how are you doing in that locker?
Jingle Irishman, his name is Money.
Meanwhile, Mr. Swain gets to interrogating the Georges about what they saw last night. It goes about as well as you'd think.
What can I take back in my gunny sack? Do you have any information? Here's the topic. Mrs. Munger and Mr. North. I see. I'll give you 24 hours, and then D-Day.
D-Day? For real? You're gonna wipe out the Germans? You got a time machine?
It's an expression. What do you know about a time machine?
Later, Mr. Nort stops by again to express fear that higher-ups might know about them hanging out. Mrs. Munger expresses frustration over the whole debacle.
Oh, shooting stars, it's just not right. We're people. And besides, I really want that opaque projector.
Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy.
Nort, simmer.
Okay.
Nice to see she has her priorities straight. Mrs. Munger suggests that maybe it'd be better if they kept their distance for the time being, which Mr. Nort reluctantly agrees with. However, unbeknownst to both of them, Grace overheard the entire conversation. Which means...
Hey, let me out! Hey! Oh, Mr. Swain, thank you. Thank you for setting me free. All I had was one cupcake.
I'll be glad to let you go on your way. But first, what can I take back in my gunny sack? Do you have any information?
Meanwhile, back at Taco Freeze, the Georges spill the details about seeing Munger and Nort out at the movies and getting accosted by Mr. Swain. Gordon presses them on what movie they saw.
Hey, what movie did you go see? Oh, Juliet's Mojo. Again. Oh yeah, again. 'Cause there was some subtle nuances we missed the first time around.
Back in class, Gordon finally squeezes information about the R-rated movie out of the two.
Juliet is scared, and she's hiding out and planning to run away. But first, she takes a shower.
Dimmer, class, dimmer. Let's bring the boats to dock and tie them off.
Before class can begin proper, Mr. Swain bursts in with Grace in tow, having heard everything about her date with Mr. Nort. With the projector and her relationship on the line, Mrs. Munger, well, I'll let her do the talking.
You have engaged in a relationship that is against my better judgment. What can you say to that?
What can I say? Well, frankly, Mr. Swain, at the risk of losing a truly wonderful piece of projection technology, your better judgment could use some bona fide improvement. Because if you think you're going to tell me who I can and cannot see outside of this classroom, you are quite off your rock-a-doodle-doo. What about free will? And what about freedom of choice?
She does say that.
I just have to say that you, Mr. Swain, you can sinner!
I think I just found a new meme. With the projector finally in her possession, Mrs. Munger and Mr. Nort agree to a second date, and Mrs. Munger's class, as we know it, ends.
Nort, I was being a little foolish. We don't need to hide. I think you're considerate and kind, and in some ways you even remind me of my late husband.
You mean I smell like old books?
No. Although I do like that smell. I mean, I would like to go out with you again.
Oh, good.
Oh, Lordy!
I'm okay.
Craig.
This pilot was very interesting, to say the least. It managed to stretch a 90-second interstitial to 22 minutes without overstaying its welcome. The extra interactions between the class was nice, the focus on the Georges was a neat change of pace from being a simple punchline, and seeing more than just the yearbook was a breath of fresh air. The move to primetime also allowed it to get away with some weirder material that most kids wouldn't likely get on one Saturday morning. If I had to give it some criticism, I wish the class had a bit more balanced time in the limelight. As much as I appreciate the focus on the Georges, it leaves the rest of the class more or less the same way they were in the original shorts. to say nothing of the fact Grace spends most of the episode stuffed in a locker. But I feel like that could have been easily solved with more episodes. A sort of student-focused episode each week, if you will. The other bonuses on the DVD are just as weird, if not more so. The first thing is that football-themed short that was meant to air during Monday Night Football on ABC.
Thank you, Christopher. Someone should give you a nickname.
Pork rinds! Simmer, Phoebe. I think you mean pigskin, as in Monday Night Football.
This seems to have been roughly 95% done, as there's still some lip movements that needed to be rendered.
Hey, little guy. Are you a Denver fan?
What?
A Bronco backer?
What?
A fan?
What?
But I do find it funny seeing these football players rendered in the Munger style.
Now, Theodore... Where is Theodore?
What are you doing down here, Theodore?
Autograph?
Someone missing a kid?
Well, someone should go get Theodore. Eventually. Right now, let's go back to that loquacious Christopher Berman.
The next thing is some sort of animatic the team seemingly did for fun.
Pie Slice 9, Vector 7. I am Team Leader Obermeyer, eager to service you with my many piping hot pies.
The best way I could describe it is Speed Racer, but he delivers pizza.
I must tell you yet again, you cannot park your car here, there, nor anywhere.
Then you must ticket me once again. I have no time for your many shenanigans.
After him! Sub 3, you have parked AMC Pacer X atop a highly sensitive government-owned industrial bridge.
The last thing on here is a bonus Munger short where the class learns about the human body.
Butt crack! Does anyone know what this long thing is?
That's a penis!
This is me, Unger me, as a Enos pay. I. Rap cray in my aunt's pay.
Simmer, class, simmer. It's a strap-on, it's not my own.
Itch pay.
Okay, if you couldn't tell, this was definitely a for fun segment that was never meant to air. According to Maloney, this was one of those improvised blue reel things that would usually get wiped, but the crew made it into a properly animated short for the hell of it. Oops. The dead shall speak. Let's put together the truth of what happened here. At the launch of Disney's new Saturday morning block, a small interstitial segment about a teacher and her students became the talk of the town, not just from critics and audiences, but internally at Disney. Mrs. Munger's Class, as it was called, was a surprise hit for this innocent Saturday morning block, and Disney was more than happy to turn it into an even bigger hit outside of one Saturday morning with a primetime series. However, before the pilot could air, some of the people whose likenesses were used for the series discovered what had happened and filed a lawsuit against Disney for using their photos without permission. After unsuccessfully attempting to pay them royalties for their likenesses, they were forced to shut down production, and the attempted follow-up, Centerville, flopped. Mrs. Munger's Class is a cautionary tale about rights and privacy. If you use someone's photo, especially a photo of themselves, make sure to properly credit them. If you're going to use their photos in a joking manner, try to at least get their permission. One of the reasons Weird Al Yankovic is such a beloved figure is because he goes out of his way to personally get permission from the musicians he's parodying so they can be in on the joke, even though he had every legal right not to. It was a way to not only respect the original artist, but make sure any joke made wasn't at their expense. I get that the creators never set out to intentionally belittle these people. They just wanted to make a funny series of 90-second sketches, and trying to track down each and every student for approval would have taken a while and was too much effort for such a project. But when it gets right down to it, every yearbook photo tells a different story. And in this day and age, if you want to make a series like Mrs. Munger's Class, just use stock photos. No one's gonna sue you for that. Please be seated. The case of the people versus Dr. Robert Rupert Rumpelstiltskin Rabbit can now commence.